Entergy provides much more than power. We support science and engineering at local schools to build a brighter path to better jobs and help prepare the next generation. Because together, we power life. Entergy.
Additional support provided by the Fred B. and Ruth B. Ziegler Foundation and the Ziegler Art Museum located in Jennings City Hall. The museum focuses on emerging Louisiana artists and is an historical and cultural center for Southwest Louisiana. And the Foundation for Excellence in Louisiana Public Broadcasting, with support from viewers like you.
Louisiana House of Representatives finally adopted the MFP resolution.
A wrap on this year's session of the legislature.
It wasn't about the fiscal cliff.
But there was one decision from lawmakers that caught America's attention.
You just live from day to day and keep going.
The valuable life lessons and legacy of the one and only Leah Chase. Hi, everyone. I'm Andre Moreau. Natasha Williams is off tonight. More on those top stories ahead on this week's edition of SWI. But first, some other big headlines from around the state. Plans for opening the Morganza Spillway had been delayed a second time and now is postponed indefinitely. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers made this announcement Thursday afternoon. It's all because of what's happening to the north, the result of breaches and overtopping levees along the Arkansas River, slowing the rise of that river as it enters the Mississippi. Storms and heavy rain and tornadoes became big news overnight Wednesday into Thursday. The National Weather Service says a confirmed tornado near Sorrento touched down at 10 a.m. ExxonMobil in Baton Rouge reported 5 injuries at its plant in Sorrento from the twister. The weather was remnants of a tropical disturbance that came in from the Gulf. Heavy rains also produced flash flooding. One piece of legislation from this year's session at the Capitol involves hazing laws and could change guidelines around reporting and investigating incidents of hazing. This is all in response to the hazing-related death of an LSU Phi Delta fraternity freshman, Max Groover. He died in the fall of 2017 and had been on campus just a few weeks. Former Governor Kathleen Blanco is one of this year's inductees into the Saints Hall of Fame. Blanco was instrumental in fast-tracking extensive Superdome renovations completed less than a year after Hurricane Katrina in 2005. She receives the Joe Gemelli Fleur-de-Lis Award for her off-the-field contributions. Reggie Bush and Marcus Colston are 2 former players who joined Blanco among this year's inductees. Dr. John, a New Orleans musical legend, has died. Sources for the family say Malcolm John Rebenak, also known as Dr. John, died of an apparent heart attack. He was a 6-time Grammy Award-winning musician and Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inductee. He once told people he liked working behind the scenes, but as his career progressed, the onstage persona of Dr. John the Night Tripper took hold. Dr. John was 77. The world premiere of Seize and Secure, The Battle for Lafayette, took place Wednesday night at the World War II Museum in New Orleans. This documentary sheds light on a relatively unexplored but pivotal battle as Allied forces invaded France on D-Day, June 6, 1944. The film honors the 75th anniversary of D-Day. And in case you missed it, the premiere of Seize and Secure will re-air Sunday night at 6 on LPB, and it also can be watched online at lpb.org and on your LPB app. State lawmakers filed more than 860 bills in the 2019 session of the legislature that just ended Thursday night at 6. They put the finishing touches on a more than $30 billion state budget with boosts to public schools, colleges, health, and public safety. LPB's Natasha Williams takes a look at some of the other session headlines.
It was a bill that seemed to have the support of all lawmakers, regardless of their party affiliation, but it wasn't passed until near the end of the 2019 legislative session.
The Louisiana House of Representatives finally adopted the MFP resolution, and what this does is gives the teachers and support workers the pay raise that they so desperately deserve.
State Representative Ted James, like many, backed the proposal. He said it should have been more, but
The importance about it being in the MFP is that it's permanent and not what initially passed the House, where it would have been more of a stipend.
State Representative Terry Landry of New Iberia saw his controversial bill to abolish the death penalty stall for lack of support, never even going to a vote.
My death penalty bill, I didn't have the votes, but my expectation was to start the conversation when I brought this bill 3 years ago. We've exceeded that, and I don't know if you witnessed it, but the place was the most attentive and quiet as I've ever seen it. And I think in a period in my lifetime, probably next term, I think the death penalty is going to be repealed in Louisiana. I do believe that. And sometimes the best legislation takes a couple of years for it to pass.
Another controversial bill did receive overwhelming support amid protests throughout the state and around the country. Republican Senator Mike Walsworth of West Monroe voted for the fetal heartbeat abortion bill.
We are trying to limit the number of abortions in this state, and I think that's a good thing, that we believe in the right to life, and I think that's a good thing.
We've worked hard, and I think we have accomplished quite a few things. We've done a lot with the budget. You know, we have fully funded TOPS. We have funded teacher pay raises with an extra $39 million going to the districts. We have provided $20 million for early education, which is $12 million or so of that is new money. We've provided $38 million for disability services, which has been badly needed.
State Senator Sharon Hewitt of Slidell says there were some very noticeable misses during the 8-week session.
We haven't really done very much in terms of any kind of tax reform or budget reform. There was a number of pieces of legislation that would have helped keep a little pressure on us to not continue to grow the size of government, and we didn't really do any of that.
State Representative Barbara Norton from Shreveport authored House Bill 605, calling for equal pay between men and women in the private sector, but it never made it out of committee hearings.
Regardless of how it may sound, people are still focused on, legislators are still focused on the fact, will they come back next year? Will they be back next year? And what all would they need to do in order to, there's no guarantee in anything, but to make sure that they are comfortable with what they are doing in order to come back.
Others also believe much of what was voted up or down had a lot to do with the upcoming election, some saying no one wanted to rock the boat.
Those bold ideas, unfortunately, a lot of them didn't make it out. We still haven't done anything to increase the minimum wage. We know poverty is a major issue here. Unfortunately, equal pay for women has still not been a reality. We have passed legislation for state workers, but what this legislature continues to say is it's okay for the state to have a certain standard and pay women what they deserve, but for private businesses, it's not okay for them to do that.
State Senator and pharmacist Fred Mills of Parks, Louisiana, reworked the language on a medical marijuana bill that was headed for failure, but it ultimately got the thumbs up.
It is really big because people with a debilitating medical condition, sometimes inhalation through a metered dose inhaler gives quick relief. So I think it's really important for folks with these debilitating conditions.
Natasha, thanks for that. Also happening, new limits on food labeling, restrictions that will keep veggie products from being called meat, for example. These are meant to protect state farmers. Also, lawmakers refuse to legalize sports betting. In the final minutes of the session, they set 16 as a minimum age to marry and voted down a proposal to end capital punishment. Our session coverage continues now with analysis from two of the state's top political reporters. Joining us now, her recent columns include the Bobby Jindal legacy, health care, the proposed child marriage law, from the Advocate newspaper's Stephanie Grace. And he writes on subjects across the board, but is chief political reporter for USA Today Network, Greg Hilburn. Thank you both for being here. The session over now. The big story was abortion. Your take on what happened there, Stephanie?
Well, this was a little bit of a surprise. This was not really the headline we were expecting to come out of this session. It was the first session where there wasn't a fight to the finish on how to pay for things. It wasn't about the fiscal cliff, but it was an election year session. So the feeling was not a lot of controversy would come up. This was controversial, and it came up.
and it caught on everywhere nationwide, big time.
Because John Bel Edwards is the only anti-abortion Democratic governor in the state. And of course, he's up for re-election this fall. A lot of people didn't, I think out in the country, maybe didn't know that, or it wasn't the most important thing people knew about him. And this is such a big issue nationally with what's happened with the Supreme Court, with the change from Anthony Kennedy to Brett Kavanaugh, and the fact that abortion rights really could be decided, that all of a sudden this legislation coming out of states around the country is really getting tons of attention.
And Louisiana's got a lot of attention.
A lot of attention.
What was your takeaway on how it went down?
Well, first of all, we should say what the bill does. So there is a bill that would take effect if a similar law passed by Mississippi is upheld. Right. It would basically ban abortion after about 6 weeks after a fetal heartbeat, so-called, people quibble over that language, can be detected. It does not include exceptions for rape or incest. It basically, the exceptions are to save the life of the mother, or if there is like very severe potential damage to the woman who's pregnant. So it's basically a pretty much a ban on abortion, and it was passed overwhelmingly by the House and Senate, including by Democratic sponsors. So that's kind of interesting. And the governor signed it. He has always said that he's anti-abortion. There's an argument that he could have maybe not signed it because of the lack of a rape and incest exception. And it's going to be very interesting politically, I think, because there are people in his base who are very upset about the fact that he's signing it.
Yeah, that's true. How have you found that in your coverage of this story?
Well, in a way, I was somewhat surprised, not that there was going to be more anti-abortion legislation, not that this fetal heartbeat bill was coming, and I understand those who oppose it and are outraged by it, that's their opinion, but I didn't quite get the backlash on the governor, who has said throughout his career that he's right. and on this, even on this particular bill, I think I asked him specifically before anybody else. He said, I'm inclined to sign it. And so there was a pretty big backlash, maybe not necessarily as much here in the state, although there was some anger there.
But nationally caught on.
Right. And so, but it was no surprise. I guess maybe it just clicked all of a sudden that this governor was going to sign this, but it's something he has never wavered from.
It should not have been a surprise. It really shouldn't have.
Sure, people see legislation like this and there's a feeling that, oh, this has happened, but it's far from it because so much has to take place.
But there's also a feeling that it's perhaps more likely that it could happen because of the current makeup of the Supreme Court.
Right.
So I think that's the immediacy and the real emotion over it.
And we may want to mention that there's another abortion bill that passed. There were several anti-abortion bills that passed, but the other one is a constitutional amendment that would basically bar abortions, set language in our state constitution banning abortions, banning any language that would be that there's a right to an abortion. That is largely symbolic for now, unless the Supreme Court eventually reverses its 1973 Roe versus Wade historic that made abortion legal nationwide.
That's the big story, obviously, to come out of this session. Let's talk about some of the other things. Overall, what kind of grade would you give legislators?
Yeah. Passing, I guess. They did some easy things, which I think is what happens in an election year.
Passing is not necessarily great, right?
Well, did they do anything very ambitious? Not really, but they did. Teachers will get a pay raise. This has been something John Bell Edwards has wanted, most legislators wanted. What was interesting this year was they still fought over it, even though everybody supported it.
Right.
And that really tells you what's the kind of mood of the legislature is. It's pretty partisan these days. People are gearing up to run for election. This person gets credit, this person doesn't get credit. But in the end, it worked out that teachers will get a $1,000 pay raise, support workers $500, and there will be some new money going into school districts. This was another point of contention.
About $40 million.
Yeah.
I was asking about the partisanship. Yeah. So the tone.
Yes.
You both feel. I can tell your thoughts on it.
Oh, absolutely.
Same way.
It's very partisan.
It seems like
has
more
been
so last
a growing
year.
trend, but there was less to do.
Yes.
It wasn't as intense.
We
this session
were not
because
on the fiscal cliff anymore.
There was no budget crisis.
Even though that was discussed.
There was more money than they expected. So when that happens, generally you have a much smoother sailing.
Although you have people fighting over
how much to take the new money, right?
Exactly, because one thing that didn't happen that was kind of interesting was there was a move to roll back some of the taxes passed just last year that solved the fiscal cliff, and that was by this Republican, this very conservative majority in the House. They passed it, including a lot of people who had voted for the tax increases ended up voting to roll them back. I think they passed it knowing the Senate was not going to pass it, so it was a safe vote for them.
Right.
So there were things like that.
Okay, was there anything else that stands out before we wrap here?
There's usually one surprise bill, and to me the surprise bill was this $700 million infrastructure that will be distributed to 10 major projects throughout the state using the BP settlement money. And that kind of bubbled up organically. Something like that, usually there's a campaign for it 6 months.
Really at the very end of the session.
Right, so that was a surprise.
And it was interesting because the backdrop of that is there have been efforts to raise money for infrastructure through a gas tax, which have not gone anywhere because it's a tax. So this is another way of getting at that.
All right, I appreciate you both being here
Thanks,
so much.
Andre.
Great insights.
Appreciate it.
Greg, Stephanie, thanks so much.
Pleasure.
And we wondered how this year's session left lawmakers from around the state feeling after it was all over, especially as it relates to the people that they represent. Here's what we heard.
Short session, and you don't have as many bills filed, and that always helps. But the finances, we had surplus dollars, and anytime you have enough dollars, then the session generally goes. You never have enough for what everybody wants to spend, but when you have a surplus, you generally have enough to be able to meet the needs. And then we've been able to add some things. Roads and education is two of the top priorities with our citizens anytime that you talk about them. We've done a lot of other things here, this session, but those are the two major pieces. And I think when we get back home and people see what's happened, then I think they should feel good about the session.
Senator Jim Fannin says one bill he passed will help encourage the future farmers of his mostly rural district.
Our 4-H and future farmers of America, we're dwindling. Us old farmers are dwindling in number. So we need to be teaching our youth. So what I did was to pass a piece of legislation that exempts sales tax on all feed, seed, and fertilizer purchases for all of our, what I call student farmers. So they get a break, mom and dad will get a break when they purchase these things, when they want to show an animal, when they want to do something in the gardening aspect that teaches them what agriculture is truly about. Then we're giving them the break of sales tax.
We didn't do much in terms of tax reform, which I knew because it's an election year. Unfortunate that we still couldn't pass minimum wage. But I think by and large the session was successful. The teachers got a pay raise. For the capital region, we made a really big investment in some of our long-standing capital outlay projects. So we were able to move some dollars from the BP settlement, and now we're going to focus those dollars on infrastructure. So those are wins for the capital region. And in that bill included a big project for everyone across the state.
A personal win for Representative Ted James came on House Bill 358, dealing with medical marijuana. The House overwhelmingly passed a measure that would let therapeutic cannabis patients use an inhaler like asthma patients use.
The beauty of it is so many senators that voted against it on Sunday not only voted yes, but they took to the floor because they received calls from folks in their district. So it showed how important it is for everyday citizens to really be a part of the process, because those calls, those personal calls, really impacted. And we picked up 12 votes, so we got it off the floor with 31 votes.
It's been a learning experience. It's kind of like starting over in school. Each day is a new day. You think you know something, the next day you're reminded you don't know too much.
The freshman representative had several bills passed. One dealt with the rebranding of a community college in his district.
It involved our technical college in Minden. We converted it from the last technical college to a community technical college. That's very important moving forward. It's going to help us continue to do what we've done for the last 40 plus years and educate the young men and women in our parish and really in all of Northwest Louisiana.
Well, we were pushing for some related to children, and particularly foster children and the way that they're funded and how the finances previously really stayed with the parents instead of going with the children. And that bill will now make sure that the children are taken care of through whatever source of funding and support with the government all the way through, regardless of where they are.
State Representative Mike Johnson of District 27 was one of 14 freshmen tackling his first session. Another bill he proposed and passed dealt with elder care.
A bill related to health care and making sure that we protect the elderly and that background checks are adequately run on people that have any kind of care with our elderly and those that are most vulnerable.
In a way, I guess you can call it successful. It's been kind of tedious in some instances, but I think the things that we've gotten out that are most important exactly are the teacher pay raises and the money that we've gotten for our school districts.
State Representative Pat Smith, like many others, voicing her disappointment in failed attempts to raise the minimum wage and equal pay for women.
That's so unfortunate that people don't understand the worthwhileness of minimum wage, equal pay for women, because we are an impoverished state. Those bills would actually help us move our people out of poverty, and that's unfortunate that they don't recognize it.
And thank you to my partner, Natasha Williams. She spent the week there at the state capitol as the days of the session came to an end yesterday. Well, in the coming weeks, look for our coverage and analysis as the race for Louisiana governor really unfolds.
You have to make every man feel his worth. People have made me feel like I'm worth everything. And then you can perform. If you just lift people up, you'd be surprised all the things they could do.
That's Leah Chase. On the night in 2007, she was named a Louisiana legend by LPB. Known as the Queen of Creole Cuisine, she passed away June 1st. She fed people at her famous New Orleans restaurant, and she nourished them with her wisdom. And she had a knack for saying things that people understood. Things like, to be a woman, you have to look like a girl, act like a lady, think like a man, and work like a dog. Mrs. Chase was a great teacher of life lessons and a great friend for many years to LPB.
If you was talking to my community years ago and up to just a few years back and you said the restaurant, they knew where they were going. There was just one, Dookie Chase's. My name is Leah Chase. I'm a chef, co-owner of what's left of this place here. We had Duke Ellington, Nat Cole, and you see we'd get all the musicians when they get off. Everybody came here. Ray Charles, this was Ray's place. People came before integration because if they had to meet with black people, they either met in the church or they met here. In New Orleans, we do a lot over food. We meet and plan big things over food. Before the hurricane came, we were working hard, really working hard. And here comes Katrina, and now, overnight, you have no place. There was water all over. I had never in my life seen anything like this. I've been in this kitchen 60 years, and there are a lot of people just like me. They can go wherever they please. The way I am, I can't do that. Because, it's just not about me. I think people can build up neighborhoods, just stay there and make it work. And that's what I did here all these years, and that's what I'm going to continue to do. Every morning I get up and I look out there. For a long time it was just nothing. I could see nothing happening, and it was, to me, so slow. The biggest challenge was getting this work done. I thought I could never get it done. A lot of people helped me get to this point. So I can't sit down and wait. I have to prove to these people that they didn't waste their time helping me. I open now for lunch, and you can see today we have a good lunch, but I like dinner. So we got it this far, and I think by maybe middle of May, we'll have everything going for dinner and all. I never look back at what I had or what I can't get. I never do that. You just live from day to day and keep going. And that's all you have to do, honey. That's how you pay people back for what they do for you. You show them, well, I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna lift up this community, and we're gonna lift up our city, and that's what I intend to do. Now, when it came to getting things in place again, the people helped me. So I was pretty lucky, and I was, 83 years old, almost 83. So, but people said, what you're going back for? What was I to do? We had to build this city back. I had nowhere else to live. Thank goodness they gave me a trailer, and I knew what it felt like to be in a trailer. But that wasn't the worst thing either, because at least I had a place to sleep. The trailer wasn't the best thing in the world, but, I came through depression, honey, so anything is good. I can lay my head anywhere as long as I had shelter over it. You learn how to do things when you have to do them. You learn what's important. You learn how to live with one another. And I find that is what's happening in this city, that we are coming together more than we ever came together.
And there is much more Leah Chase coming your way Saturday night at 7 here on LPB, a special chronicle of her life with journalist Michelle Miller. From the humble beginnings in Madisonville to worldwide fame as a chef and just a teacher of great life lessons. That is our show for this week, everyone. Remember, you can watch us anytime and anywhere with LPB, our Anywhere app. We've got a brand new app. Just download it from your app store. It's free. This upgraded version features news and public affairs, documentaries, how-tos, and many more programs. And please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For all of us at Louisiana Public Broadcasting, I'm Andre Moreau. Thanks for watching. Until next time, that's the state we're in.
Support comes from
Entergy provides much more than power. We support science and engineering at local schools to build a brighter path to better jobs and help prepare the next generation. Because together, we power life. Entergy.
Additional support provided by the Fred B. and Ruth B. Ziegler Foundation and the Ziegler Art Museum located in Jennings City Hall. The museum focuses on emerging Louisiana artists and is an historical and cultural center for Southwest Louisiana. And the Foundation for Excellence in Louisiana Public Broadcasting, with support from viewers like you.